people tend to think there's like a finish line in business. Like when I reach like 30,000 people on my email list, I will have made it. It's like, no. 30,000 people just don't stay there though. And so you always have to be attracting new people to you, which, it's just, it never stopped. When I launched Empowered Shop back in 2022, we had the Facebook pixel and the Pinterest pixel and Google are installed. So they've been collecting data for years and years. Can't do that on these third-party platforms. The thing about Etsy and TPT is you have built-in buyers, and I'm not against it, but there are so many limitations. You don't own the customer data. You don't own the buying journey. You really can't get people back to your shop. And what really kills me more than anything is watching people get success in one of those places. And then they start getting word of mouth and they start advertising on their own through their own marketing channels. And then they're sending people back to these places where they're not their own customers. They're customers of Etsy or they're customers of Teachers Pay Teachers. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're all this marketing effort. Business is a simple exchange of money. I have a product or service. You pay me money for it. That is what I'm here to do. That's what every business is here to do. So me asking for money is not me telling you have to give me money. It's if you want value from me, you'll be paying money for it. That's just how it works.
Hi, Monica. Welcome to the Teacher Biz podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited to have you here. I am on your email list, so I get to see what you're doing a little bit. I love watching other marketers at work, and I
Me too.
love your stuff. So I'm happy to bring you to my audience today. Can you start by telling us a little bit about what you were doing before you had an online business and how you got into this online business world?
Yes. Well, like everyone, I feel like it was a twisty, curvy road. I got my MBA in my mid-20s, and I was in corporate America for 11 years. I worked in a Fortune 100 company in tech, and I worked in corporate marketing. So I had a lot of exposure actually to a lot of the principles that I implement today in my business, although it took a little while for them to cross over. The way my business started was with no intention of it becoming like a thing. It started as a blog in 2013 called Redefining Mom, which still exists today. And that was me taking out my frustrations of postpartum and the lack of maternity leave in the United States. And I was just venting. Like, that's it. No intention to leave my career. And then like back in 2013, I would say it was just less noisy on the internet. And so it was easier to get found. And I got found by the White House and got invited to sit actually one-on-one with President Obama and discuss my story about being a working mom. And he told me I was a Spitfire in this meeting and that I should do something with my platform. And I kind of scoffed at him at the time. Like, what do you want me to, like, I have to pay my bills. I have to pay my student loans. Like, so I wasn't giving up my W-2 wage anytime soon. But lo and behold, 8 months later, it sparked something in me and I ended up taking Redefining Mom full time and quit after 11 years. And really what allowed me to take it full time was a concept that I don't feel like was talked about then, but is talked about all the time now, which is digital products. It's not like they didn't exist in 2016, but it wasn't a buzz thing on the internet. Like blogging was and content creation was, but not really digital products. Like online courses were, but digital products like are so like wide in breadth. Like we've launched so many different types. So through that, we kept going on these windy, turvy roads where I became like a Pinterest ad specialist for 4 years and went to Pinterest and got to meet the CEO. And then in 2021, I just sort of burned out on Pinterest. And I was like, the thing I kept finding that was irritating to me about teaching paid ads was that people came to me without a converting offer, but they wanted to dump money into like just getting traffic. And I'm like, who taught you this was a good idea? Like the marketer in me could not handle that. So I ended up spending most of my time teaching paid advertising, teaching the step before it, which was you need a converting offer in your business before you should spend any money on your marketing. And I really enjoyed doing that because I'd launched so many digital products of my own. We pivoted to the Empowered Business brand. And then in 2022, we still have the Empowered Business brand where our programs live, where we teach people how to do this stuff. But then we also have a digital product shop called Empowered Shop. And the reason we did that was because throughout the years, I say we have like 250 plus products, but honestly, we probably have more. And imagine, sending people to 250 different links to go buy stuff from you. It's illogical. And so a lot of the greatness that we've done over the 8 years got hidden in Google Drive, and the shop kind of solved for that. So now our focus is really on regular marketing into our digital product shop, and also our programs on teaching how to do product creation the right way. And also then once you've done the product creation, you have this momentum to give your customers this cohesive shopping experience, which is a digital product shop. So that's where we are today.
I love that. I think you're so right about the twisty road to success as so many of us take. That is so cool that you got to go to the White House. I didn't know
It
that.
was.
That's awesome. And I think you're completely right. I started my first blog in 2016 and I was never going to create a product. And I also didn't make any money back then until I went full-fledged into this product creation. So I couldn't agree with you more about that. So today, what does your business look like? You have these different brands kind of under one umbrella. Can you tell us about that? And
Yeah,
will
I
you
do it.
also tell us where most of your customers come to you from?
Absolutely. So I do have a lot of brands. This is true. So Redefining Mom got sidelined around 2018 when I started really like investing in teaching people their marketing skills online. Because again, I mentioned I didn't recognize how much at first, how much of my skills from corporate translated over into business. And what I found is a lot of people come into online business and they didn't have the business background I did, which gave me a different perspective on a lot of things. And I think I caught on to some things or trends maybe a little bit easier because of that. And I would talk and people would be like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Can you explain that further? So I ended up finding I was not a teacher by trade, and I know this is a teacher podcast, but come to find out I'm a rather good teacher. It seems, which is weird. I never would have guessed that, but I'm very systematic and I can break things down in a very easy to understand way. And I can ingest a lot of information, but then give it back in a way that's easy to like follow. Had no idea before this business that that was the case, but here we are. So now the business, Redefining Mom, got sidelined, but because of the brilliance of SEO, I'm indexed on that. So we still make money on that brand. And actually, this year we finally, to follow my own teachings, launched redefiningmom.shop. So now it's got its own shop too, but that's all being driven but right now by like just passive stuff, like passive search. Um, we've always said we're going to get back to Redefining Mom, and I would love to, but the teaching side of my business takes a lot. So the teaching side of my business kind of has multiple brands. So we have Empowered Business, which is kind of our umbrella for all of it. And then we have a few offshoots, like our big program that teaches digital product shops is called Digital Shop Experience. And then we have the Empowered Shop, where really that's like where everything we do lives. So that's if I'm pushing you somewhere from my email list, it's going to be either I'm doing a dedicated push towards a larger program, or you're going to go to my digital product shop where everything is. And that allows people to really, it honestly allows me to meet people where they're at. And the thing about shops that I've learned over the last 2.5 years of doing it and being successful at it and teaching a lot of people to do it is really shops have their own unique buying journey all in of themselves. Like we hear a lot about buying journeys with funnels, but really a shop's a buying journey too. And if I wasn't good at that, it would make it really hard for the shop to be successful because I have so many products, because that could also get overwhelming. So really digital product shops is like where my main focus is right now. And the way people come to me, oh, that's a whole topic in and of itself. I've been pretty open in my business about the fact that 2023 was a terrible year for me personally. I got divorced unexpectedly after 11 years of marriage, and my stepfather, who was basically my father, passed away the same weekend my husband moved out. So it was a very tumultuous year, but like everything, teaches you a lot of lessons, and usually they manifest in your business as well. So 2023 happened to be our highest revenue year because that's when we were like really cranking on the shop stuff. We had lots of people who were interested in learning it from us. And the way I really got myself out about this topic was I participated in a lot of strategic summits. I would sponsor strategic events that would have those types of buyers. Because when you talk about digital product shops, we're really talking about someone who's been creating content for a decent amount of time in order to have enough content to put in a shop. And then when all of that happened in my personal life, which I'm feeling it right now coming into like mid 2024, I couldn't be as visible. So I couldn't be participating. So everything, I always say that lead generation will make or break you 6 months out. So needless to say, coming into 2024, I took the hit pretty hard for the fact I really just didn't have the bandwidth to be present in the business. And now I'm full-fledged back into it. So the way people come to us is we get a lot of word of mouth at this point because I've been doing this for a long time. I do a lot of visibility things like being in podcasts like this, being in summits, sponsoring certain events. And we finally, after about 2 years of hiatus, started really doubling down on paid advertising again. So people tend to think there's like a finish line in business. Like when I reach like 30,000 people on my email list, I will have made it. It's like, no. 30,000 people just don't stay there though. And so you always have to be attracting new people to you, which, it's just, it never stops. It's funny when I talk to new people and they're like looking for an end goal. And I'm like, there is no end goal. You will always have to be doing this stuff. It's this idea of this, like, I put something on the internet and I just go and hide forever. That's not the way it works.
I know, and we hear all these terms like passive income that make us believe that that is a thing. I remember
I
with
know.
my first blog, I felt like once I got to Mediavine, I'd be all set, and then I wouldn't have to
Exactly.
work so hard anymore. You're right, so not
It's
true.
not a thing.
So when you run ads now, and this is just me being curious, but when you run ads, do you run them to your shop or do you run them to a sales page?
So I love that you asked that question. So I talk a lot about the fact that just because I have a shop doesn't mean I don't need sales funnels. The thing is, I don't need 100 sales funnels for every single product I have. I need strategic sales funnels that when people are new to me, I'm not overwhelming them with, here's my shop and here's all these things I can do. I can talk about business finances, I can talk about this, I can talk about that. And that would be overwhelming to someone new. So I use sales funnels as a means to a very, like, how I'm bringing you in, whether it's on a Facebook ad or a summit or a bundle, I know your starting point with me. Like you clicked on an ad that had a mention of something. You listened to my presentation about something. And so I'm not going to send you just, oh, here's the product listing for whatever is the next thing in the journey. I'm going to take you through a sales funnel, essentially. So I still run ads primarily to that. Now, I think that there's a strong, and I've done this, I haven't invested, I've really grown my shop pretty much organically with all my other marketing efforts that layer on top of it. Definitely retargeting should be a thing. We've started doing that with Pinterest. So in your shop, which I know I already know where this is going to lead. And this is why Etsy and Teachers Pay Teachers are limiting. There's lots of reasons I can go on forever, but one of the main ones, you can't install tracking pixels. So when I launched Empowered Shop back in 2022, we had the Facebook pixel and the Pinterest pixel and Google aren't installed. So they've been collecting data for years and years. Can't do that on these third-party platforms. All that to say, when I decided, okay, it was time to get back into the ad game and I want to retarget, those pixels knew a ton about the buyers in my shop. The thing about Etsy and TPT is you have built-in buyers, and I'm not against it, but there are so many limitations. You don't own the customer data. You don't own the buying journey. You really can't get people back to your shop. And what really kills me more than anything is watching people get success in one of those places. And then they start getting word of mouth and they start advertising on their own through their own marketing channels. And then they're sending people back to these places where they're not their own customers. They're customers of Etsy or they're customers of Teachers Pay Teachers. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're all this marketing effort. It's like, I'm fine with people taking advantage. Like when I teach, I'm like, go take advantage of the built-in traffic and the revenue stream, not the whole foundations of your business that are on TPT and Etsy, but don't be wasting your time and marketing efforts on something you don't own.
Let me echo that for our listeners. It's not your whole business. Your Teachers Pay Teacher store is not your whole business. It's one way that you can find people that
100%.
choose to use it. And when Monica said that you don't get the customer data, that means you don't get the email address of the person who just purchased a product from you.
So I actually did a podcast episode on this and read the entire terms of service on Etsy because there are clever people out there that think they're like kind of beating the rules and they're not, because straight up you are not allowed to email the people who buy from you on Etsy's platform. Now, there's some workarounds that kind of are legit, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I just go right to the source. I read the terms myself. And that's what they say. And the other thing is two things happen. You can wake up tomorrow and your shop can just be shut down, and that's that. And by the way, all that hard work gone by. The other thing is, I think it was about a year ago, a lot of Etsy sellers woke up to a big US bank failing that happened to process the money that the shops were owed. And Etsy had to send an email saying, oh, our bank literally like went out of business and your payments are going to be delayed. When you buy something from the Empowered Shop, it comes through your credit card statement as empoweredshop.com and that goes right into my bank account. So, I mean, you're building on rented land with basically no controls.
So true. So true. Oh my goodness. Um, and if anyone wants to hear more about that, episode 4 of the Teacher Biz podcast, I also go into why you should not build your whole business on Teachers Pay Teachers, because my teachers, that is so often the case for them. They think
I
about
know.
having an online business, and that's the first thing they go to. I love how you're so strategic with your shop, Monica. I have a shop on the kindergarten ready side of my business. I sell pretty aggressively like you do, but always on sales pages. And I have all these products. And
Interested.
I just put them in a shop because I wanted people to be able to go and look at them at full price somewhere. And sometimes sales come through there, but hardly ever do I market my shop. It just kind of exists. So I could do a much better job with this, but I don't have 250 products. I have maybe 25. So a little bit
That's still
different.
plenty for a shop. Still plenty.
Yes. Yeah. So I have the shop, but it's not at all a big revenue driver in my business. Can you tell us a little bit about your shop strategy? I've noticed just from being on your list that you tend to drive to a specific product in your shop.
Mhm.
You do Friday sales. Is that your
Yeah,
thing?
it's called Friday. Yep, Friday at
Yes,
3
I like
p.m.
that. I like that. So tell us a little bit about your shop strategy and how you make those shop sales.
So, first of all, the shop has just made everything in my business easier, like so much easier. It all kind of started back when we were hitting a rough bump, which tends to happen honestly about every other year. There's something that will come up in business that's like, oh, so something that used to work is not working and we have to pivot and it kind of comes unexpectedly. And then I love numbers. So you put my back against the wall and I'm going to be looking at numbers. So I'm looking at my profit and loss statements. And there were so many products that I had launched. So we used to operate on a pure launch model. So we launched a big product about 4 times a year, but then in those off months, we would go way down on revenue. I just had to manage our expenses really well, pretty much. But on those off months, we'd be like, okay, well, we have all these other things we could be doing. So we'd launch like a really awesome spreadsheet and it would do super well. But then we'd go back into launch mode. So all these products we had developed over the years, or like we would do a live training and then it would just be like, well, I don't know what we're going to do with this live training now. So it's like, cool, we got the money for presenting it live, but we can't really keep driving people back to it because now we got to talk about our launch. Or so the email band, you only have so much email bandwidth. So really an email really should only have one main call to action. So if you're having 200 products, they just go and sit there. So I was looking at my profit and loss and I'm like, I remember telling my director of marketing, I'm like, did you know that that spreadsheet made us $25,000? It was like in 2020 and we never mentioned it again. And think about how like absolutely illogical that sounds when you say that out loud. And so the idea of what the shop allows us to do is, because when I drive people to the shop, it's never the intention that they just buy the product I'm driving them to. Now, if I drive them to a sales page, that's all they can do. So there's a big difference here. So like, for example, I did this live challenge back in 2021. And at the time it was a paid challenge and it led to what at the time was our signature program. It sat in Google Drive since then. What was I going to do with it? Like it was part of a launch. Well, I sell it in the shop now for $9. And not only does it lead to that higher price product, but what happens is we can now highlight that in a Friday email. And instead of me feeling like, oh, we're going to waste a whole email bandwidth on a $9 product and that's all they can buy, now they can go buy that. But they also, when they go to check out for that, will get offered the higher price program and some people will take that. But then there's a whole other thing. There's lots of, I call them marketing triggers that happen in the shop. The whole idea is that you never leave the shop with one thing in your cart. I don't ever want to see that. And that's like the whole goal. So I'm no longer doing these flash sales where it's like, here's a $9 single product to buy. No, here's like the potential of you buying 135 things from me.
I love that marketing strategy. That is awesome. And you do that every Friday? Is that like
Yeah. So
your
that
main
since
sales?
March of 2020, actually, it's not the main driver of sales in our business, which is funny. I would say so. The Friday sales, what they do for us is actually provide the visibility and it gives people an understanding of what we sell and how we sell it, even if they don't buy all the things. But people love our Friday emails because they're waiting for what's on sale. that week. And so we have trained our audience to expect us to be selling to them. That's like the most important. And it makes it actually really easy for it to roll when you get the random, I got a negative comment today about, I feel like you're always selling to me. And it's like, yes, well, I'm a business. That's what I do. Like literally, just I hope if you take nothing else away from me, because this drives me nuts about the internet, and the way people are taught. Business is a simple exchange of money. I have a product or service. You pay me money for it. That is what I'm here to do. That's what every business is here to do. So me asking for money is not me telling you have to give me money. It's if you want value from me, you'll be paying money for it. That's just how it works. So when people write emails like that, it's actually few and far between now. More people write us and say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't get my Friday email. Can you tell me what's on sale this weekend?" So now people are saying to me, I want to pay you money. I'm like begging to pay you money. Like where, when, what? So that provides the consistency baseline in our business. But we also run I like a ton of different types of marketing campaigns. We come up sometimes with a whole month long like themed things. Like we one time we did template extravaganza, another time we did summer jamboree, and all of our products were themed around summer and making running your business easier in summer. Um, and all of that but it works. It's so interesting because like even when I'm launching my larger programs, typically if you're launching a program that's like, higher priced, you're not talking about anything but that. But because people expect my Friday emails, even when I'm launching, I can still send a Friday email and they kind of view it as two separate things. It actually kind of expanded my email bandwidth, which is really interesting to be honest. And one of the probably the biggest wins of the shop.
I like that. And so you have these bigger programs too.
Mhm.
I think one is a course on running your own shop. Can you tell us about
Yes.
those?
Yeah, so we have basically our the way our structure works right now, and it took a long time to arrive at what worked well for me. So I view the baseline of our business as the shop. Regular emails are going to go out driving you to our shop. Regular deals are going to go out driving you to our shop. And that's where everything we have sits. So you can always see what we're doing. And then the next layer is we have the product for new digital product creators. That's Empowered Business Lab. So it's going to help you get the digital product idea, create it, and out in a sales funnel model because you have to attract those new people to you. So and you don't even have enough stuff for a shop anyways. After that, once you've developed your products, you've proven them, you put them into market, you start building an audience, then you go to the digital shop experience. And then what overlays everything is our Empowered Ecom membership. And that took me a little while to arrive at how I want to structure. But essentially, I have people coming in at all these different avenues. Some people come to my shop and just want to buy a quick win workshop. Other people are in the lab and they're not ready for the experience. Other people are in the experience. And so when you have a situation like this and people want your attention to ask questions, I cannot show up in 50 different places. And also for me to show up, I have to be paid to do it. I say all the time, unapologetically, I do not sit in the seat for free. I can't. I have a mortgage to pay, I have kids to take care of. And so, in order for me to show up answering all your questions, which is great, I love talking to people, but I need to get paid. So, our support membership is $197 a quarter, but it allows this, and it also we allow people to come and go. So, like, you might be working through building your shop and you're like, I need support. I have questions. You'll be in for 3 months and then be like, okay, now I'm going to focus on this other thing in my business. And then a month later, you might be like, I'm back to my shop again. And you want to come back in. So we allow it to be flexible, but that's kind of how our whole like product suite works together.
I like that. I love a membership. That is where I'm trying to drive people, my end goal of my business too. It just brings that like stability that I love.
Yes. And here's the thing. I've kind of strong opinions about two things. Shops and memberships actually do work really well together. And it kind of shocks people when I say that. I always say there's two different buying types. And the fact of the matter is, if you just sell in a membership model, some people will never, ever give you the chance to pay you a recurring charge because they don't want it. Some people just simply never want one. And a shop allows you to take things out of your membership and highlight them. And so oftentimes they work hand in hand because if someone buys something from your shop that's also part of your membership and they realize, wow, you can deliver such value in this standalone product, I would love to join your membership. And so, but here's the thing about memberships, and I feel like I am pretty strong opinionated about this. They are the most like operational bandwidth for us to run. There's a lot more logistics. And so while it sounds wonderful to have recurring revenue, and yes, I do not hate that line item on my P&L, it comes at a cost. And I think it's really important for people to like really think about like, okay, what's the trade-off for that recurring revenue? And am I ready to have that like bandwidth that's going to be taken up by running this membership?
That is good to think about it. Yeah, I think there's all different kinds of memberships. Like on the kindergarten ready side, I just give you digital products basically in the membership. So that's like very low key. I don't have to show up live for
That's good.
anything. And then on the teacher biz side, I'm doing live coaching. So I actually have to be here.
So
Yeah.
let me
So
let me ask you this on the one where you're just because we've tried it we had a digital just a template drop membership for about a year. Then we had one that was like really robust that had a lot of coaching, a lot of like deliverables in it, and now we basically have one that's like just support. So we've kind of done them all. My question now I'm like my podcaster's coming out to you. But the one where you're just delivering the digital templates, two things I'm wondering, are they available? Like, is it only available for that month, like a month drop? And then two, my other question would be, how is the back end like operations of it when people cancel, when there's missed payments? Like, how cumbersome do you find that?
I find it pretty easy because we have the system down. So I have a team member who's kind of dedicated to handle those things, and she does it and barely asks me about it, and so it's easy peasy on my end.
Mhm.
And I batch all the content, so it's like a few times a
Okay.
year I'm making that content, and then I don't really have to think about it. She puts it up. There's a searchy portal, so it looks fancy, but there's no Facebook group, there's no live coaching, there's no like my time put into
Yeah.
it besides like promoting it because I'll do webinars for it. What was the other question? The first one.
Bandwidth. Oh, how often, like the templates are they available? Like if
Oh,
I am
so
for a
if you
month, I
sign
need
up right
everything.
now, you get this month and you get the previous month because it's still on the
Okay.
portal. But then
That's
I
how we run
hide
it.
the months that came before that because mine is so seasonal. So it's like if you signed up now, you'd probably want to cancel by next May. Maybe,
Gotcha.
maybe because it might repeat. But for me, it serves 2 to 6 year olds, like families with two
Okay.
to six year olds. So you might age up. There's three different levels of activities, so you might age up into the next one. But that's a pretty easy membership. So I have like 800 members over there, and it's a 12 or 22 tier. And
Nice.
that's just like brings so much stability into that business because if
Yeah.
my ads tank, then I don't have to
Right.
stress it.
That's interesting. I'd be curious. So is the person that runs it for you, is she like a VA or?
Yeah, she's just one
Yeah.
of my team members. She used to do
Okay.
mostly customer service
Because
and
I don't touch any of the back end operations of my membership. Like I would not have one if I had to. And I'm a
Mhm.
very detail oriented person, but like I see all the failed payments that come through and like we have a process around it, but I really think like if someone's brand new, that would be a lot for them to do on their own. We get to hand that part off, which is
Yes.
nice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I did it myself for the first year of the membership before I trained her to do those things, but I agree. So your email marketing strategy, I know on Fridays we were driving to the shop. Do you email aside from that?
Oh yeah, we email a lot.
Tell us
And
about your email marketing strategy.
so I will say before the shop, it was actually really hard for us to have, and it blows my mind because in corporate, we never would have imagined not having an email calendar. And yet for years, I ran my business with no, even though the majority of our money comes from our email list, I had no email calendar. The only thing that we knew was going to happen were our launches. So like we understood the ramp up for that, the delivery for that, the sales emails for that. But on the off like months between launches, it was like, I don't know, let's throw some spaghetti. And I look back and I'm like, what were you thinking? You knew better because you did this for a living for 11 years. Um, Now, because of the shop, I can plan out our marketing calendar. And I also love this because we can keep it nimble. So I will plan out, I look at our data. Every 60 to 90 days, just kind of depends what I get caught up on. So I start my year with knowing when our launches will be. I rarely move our launches. So I know like the month before, I'm going to have to schedule some email bandwidth to promote people to get into the launches. So that's like we start there. And then and I know I'll have my Fridays, so we can fill in that. And what I promote on my Fridays is dictated by the data that I get back from my shop. So I look at like things we haven't promoted in a while that have done well. I look at everything from how a product converts before I'm going to put it on Friday, make sure if it had a lower conversion that I'm like updating the product listing. So like we have a kind of a whole system there. And then I like to be 2 months ahead with our email marketing calendar. So we put it in Asana. And basically, I build it. So I first plug in, we have an email marketing calendar that it's mirrored in Google and it's like its own calendar. So at any given time, like I can go into July and be like, okay, that week we are sponsoring a summit. We have to promote the launch that's coming up, whatever it might be. So as I'm building the email marketing calendar, I do it in I do it in week chunks. And I plug in all the Fridays first. Well, actually, I plug in the launches. Then I plug in if we commit it to any sponsorship or affiliate things. And then I plug in all the Fridays. And then I'll find where the holes are. And if there's like a week where we're really not doing anything, I plug in a flash sale. And usually when I do that, it's going to be something that's higher price in the shop. Because Fridays we tend to do like the lower price, like exciting things like that people, it's not like people are not like, oh, she's asking me to pay her $297 this Friday. It's more like the $9 things. But the flash sales during the week will usually do a higher price thing. And if I have a lot of gaps for a month as I'm building it, that's usually when we come up with the exciting things like summer jamboree, or let's do a template extravaganza, or we did like a 9-day, what do we call it? Like we were calling it internal a dumpster fire, but I'm like, that doesn't sound so great externally. So I forgot how we ended up positioning it, but it was just like we just had this empty bandwidth. So we're like, let's fill it up with sales.
I love that. And do you send any like non-sale nurture in between there too?
Not so much anymore. So this is a tricky question because I strongly do feel like the value of being in business and like the transformation that we actually provide is with our paid products. However, we do things like free trainings that lead into higher price programs. We do free, like right now I'm doing an audio summit that's 4 days of free content I'm sending out. And also I've said this for a while, but because of my personal life crisis, my podcast, which I love, I ended up doing it more in like 4 episode bursts instead of every Thursday. But now that I'm coming out of that tough season and lead gen is also top of mind, our free value, it will end up being like our Thursday podcast episodes. But here's the other thing that I think people sometimes forget. I don't have to constantly be coming up with free value to provide. When I've already done that, I can just send you back to it. I already actually did the work. And there's no reason I constantly have to be putting out new free value-led stuff when it already exists. And people are cycling in and out of my list. They don't know it exists because I might have told you about that podcast episode 2 years ago, and it's just as relevant today. So it's funny because when I look at my email marketing calendar, I don't look at it like, where am I putting all my free stuff? Not at all. It's where am I putting the things that are making us money? And then I ask myself, what do we need to do to make sure we're nurturing people the right way to make said money?
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Yeah. I put this line in my emails whenever I do send free content to my list that I am a small business owner and I can't always bring you everything for free, but when I can, I love to do it. And it's along the lines of what you're saying here, like training people to think of us as business owners and not those
Right.
ladies just handing out free stuff on the internet.
Well, one of the ladies that just canceled the membership said, we have an email that fires that says, sad to see you go. Like, just let us, it's a really like casual email. And I will say like 99% of the responses are super positive and occasionally get a negative. And today's one was I feel like you're pitching me every other day. I'm like, I am. I don't know what you want me to say about that. Like, I am. I literally cannot be providing anything to you if I'm not getting paid to do it. I'd have to go back to corporate. Like, that's just, or you'd have to go back to teaching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality. Like,
I'm not
if
going to
people
do
want
that. No
yeah, if
way.
people want our resources, they have to pay for it.
Yep. Absolutely. And I love being on your list. I love being on the list of people who are selling all the time and like watching how they do it and like studying. I'm such a nerd about that stuff, but it's so fun to see how other people are marketing.
It is. I'm the same way. I actually have a whole email account that's just dedicated to everyone's marketing emails because otherwise I can't have it in my work email or I would not get any work done.
Hmm.
But yeah, I have the same thing. And I will like on the weekends, I'll like be going through it. I'll be reading and I'll follow the links. It's like it's an art to study.
Mm. Yes, it so is. All right, Monica, what advice would you give to someone who's just getting started with an online business?
Okay, well, I have to say, first of all, I'm a realist. So, and yet and I would say probably people in my life would be like, oh, you're mainly pessimistic. I like to call it a realist. But with online business, like we have never lived in a cooler time where there is endless opportunity on the internet. And like, when has there ever been an opportunity to start a business with pretty low overhead and make more money than you ever thought? Imagine I make more money than and I worked at a good corporate job, and I never would have fathomed this. That being said, I'm my realistic side, I feel like it's a disservice not to tell people that this is hard work and you're making all the decisions. No one's going to tell you what to do. No one's going to force you to show up at your computer. You have to be self-accountable, and don't be unrealistic about how long it takes to build something. But the cool thing about online business is, like, while you feel like through those early stages, just keep reminding yourself that you're putting in all the hard work, because online business is like a snowball. And once your work starts doubling down on itself and the snowball starts, the swing up is so fast. But those early days, like, be prepared to show up and do the work and not get a whole ton of recognition for it. And that's probably like the thing I see people struggle with the most. And also, perfectionism has no place in business. And I'm type A, and I get it. And the amount of things that I have to tame my type A on is quite high. It comes in handy when I'm doing project plans and stuff. But the reality is, to move things out, like, I cannot obsess about every little thing, or we would never put anything new out. And trust me, if something really is bad, people are going to tell you anyways. But generally, if you're putting your best foot forward and you're doing your due diligence, like, just do it, because until you put it out there and get numbers back and get data back, like, what are you doing? So like, I don't tell people to create all this free stuff first. You have to create the end in mind. Like, if you're going to spend time getting people to you, you have to know what you're selling to them. There's no point in going out there. Let me tell you, lead gen is probably I say it's the thorn in every business owner's side. It will never stop. You always have to do it. I actually kind of hate it. But the reality is, if I'm going to spend all this time and money like getting people to me, I they have to have a way to pay me. And I see so many people start and they're like, they get these like Instagram presences and stuff. And then they're like, oh, I have all these people that are like paying attention to me, but I have no way to make money off of them. Don't do that. Like, have the end in mind.
Don't invite people over to your house if you don't have any food to put out for them.
Right. Like, it's bonkers how many people do that, though. I don't know where that bad advice came from, but don't do that.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that. And you're so right about this perfectionism. I have the same feeling. I was stuck in this perfectionism for a long time. And the second I pushed through that and started taking all that imperfect action, that's when like money actually flows into your business
Yep.
because you start making progress.
I have sold some of my like, I've done very few high ticket things. Like, to me, that's like 5 grand and above. Because it always sounds scary to ask someone to like pay you that kind of money. And when I've done those, it's usually I go out with, you know what, I have this idea for this thing. This is what I want to do. And people pay me money. It's kind of bizarre, actually, in some ways. It's like so counterintuitive to some things that you would think. But I mean, that would have scared me so much early on, because it's like, what, you want me to ask people for how much money? And I'm not even like, I don't even totally know what I'm giving them. Like, but yes, like, you have to, that's the thing when you finally have an audience too. They'll tell you real quick what they want and what they don't.
Yes, and that's the other thing. You can never make your product perfect without the input from the people who are actually buying the thing.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. So you have to be prepared. I mean, I've got critical feedback before. You always can tell when someone's mean-spirited versus someone's legitimately giving you feedback, and you'll learn as a business owner just to edit that kind of stuff out, because some people just will never get it. And that's fine. You can't don't never cater your business to like the 0.05% of crappy people out there. Just don't do that.
Completely agree. This has been such a fun conversation. Tell us what you're working on right now and what you're excited about.
Well, so we just made the decision. I have actually myself not invested in a higher priced program in a long time, because I pretty much like feel like I know what I'm doing in my business. And unless it's a specific skill I really need, I don't really invest in things anymore. But we just decided that it's time, after sponsoring a bunch of summits and bundles, for us to run our own Empowered Business Summit. So my entire summer is going to be spent working on that. We're going to launch it in September. And so in the meantime, before that's ready, You can always find us at empoweredshop.com because that's where I'm going to send you anyways once you get into my world. And then if you want to know like everything that we do, if like just like our overarching journey, monicafroese.com, and that will lead you pretty much anywhere that you want to go in my business. But Empowered Shop is my baby. So if you want to learn from me, that's where to go.
Go study Monica's marketing emails and her shop strategy like I have been. It's fun. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up here?
Yeah. Remember not to build on rented land.
Mm. Yes, teachers, listen to that one. Your own
Go get
land,
your
not
own
those
shop.
TPT. Yeah, not those TPT stores. Thank you. Thanks so much for coming on, Monica. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.